I chose the best friend's brother as my anchor for this story. Daniel, Mara's older brother, freshly divorced and twice my age, had always seemed safe in the way a tall, quiet tree stands beside a walking path. Until that weekend when Mara invited us to her lakeside cabin, and the air grew thick with secrets we pretended not to hear. That night, just past midnight, I saw his text. "I cannot sleep, and I cannot stop thinking about you." The words burned on my screen and burned in my chest, and I knew the boundary I had built since the first time I met him would start to crumble the moment I spoke or breathed too close. I am 34, a woman who has built a small but solid life around a job I love and a husband who has learned to read my moods even when I hide them. A best friend who trusts me with her whole world, and a promise I once kept to myself to never steal what is not mine to take. The weekend had begun with ordinary charm. Warm coffee in the mornings, the quiet lake outside the window, pines sighing with the wind, Mara's laughter slipping through the walls like light. I admired Mara's easy confidence, the way she could talk about future plans and know that her own path would bend toward what felt right. My husband, Marcus, was away on a business trip, which somehow made the house feel emptier than it should, as if the rooms remembered a couple who fit. And I did not. The plan had been simple: a long weekend of rest, a chance to breathe after a string of late nights at the design studio, a few board games, and a sunset that would pretend nothing had changed. The first morning, Glenn, Mara's dog, trotted between our chairs, panting with a little water on his whiskered nose. And Mara recounted the latest stories from the town festival, while Daniel listened with the same quiet attention he gave to old maps and weather forecasts. The moment he and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen, I felt the old, familiar pull that time and distance had tried to erase. An accidental brush of hands as I reached for the kettle, a shared glance at the clock over the stove, and then his mouth, when he spoke, numb in its honesty, saying he had never forgotten the girl who used to ride her bike to his door when she was younger, the way she would ask him for stories about the world beyond their town. The house seemed to lean closer, the light from the glass door turning his hair to gold, and I could almost taste the rain outside, as if the air itself held its breath for us. We spoke softly about the things we had avoided in the past, the distances that had grown between old friends, the ways a life can drift into routine, until one moment, a sentence spoken with care, a touch delivered with intent, pulls the map free from the wall and shakes it loose. We did not plan for it to happen. It simply did. A kiss that began with a cautious whisper and then moved across skin as if the night itself was learning how to be gentle again. The kiss was not loud, not a mistake, but a confession held in the palm of a hand. A confession that said, "We both know this is dangerous, and yet we are also free for the first time in a long time." In the hours that followed, we walked along the shore where the water wore tiny stars into the moonlight. And he spoke of his divorce with a weariness that made him seem younger than his years, while I spoke softly of a marriage that had grown heavy with unspoken words. The ache inside me sharpened, not into a cruel need, but into a fierce longing for something I had shelved away. A second chance at belonging somewhere that did not demand me to be perfect for everyone else. If this confession has you on the edge of your seat, hit like and share because you will not believe what happens next. The weekend stretched into days of careful glances, quiet conversations, and the delicate math of boundaries we kept adding up in the silent spaces between us. Mara returned with a bag full of fresh bread, and for a moment I remembered how quickly a life can shift when the people you trust most stumble into truth. I found myself torn between the safety of a long marriage built on habit and the electric gravity of a passion that felt like a door left ajar. Inviting but ominous, Daniel did not push. He asked questions with a gentleness that made me feel seen, not judged, and I answered with the honesty I had kept locked away. I was not sure I wanted to pretend any longer, not sure I could pretend that a life I had scaffolded with care would hold without some weathering. The more I listened to the harbor bell in the distance and the creak of the deck under a sudden wind, the more I realized that a second chance does not come wrapped in a pretty bow. It comes as a choice, to heal or to hollow out. When Mara announced that she and her brother would be leaving early to visit a lawyer about the divorce documents, I stood in the doorway with my hand on the frame and felt the line between right and wrong blur until it blurred no more, but then blurred again in the other direction. The decision to tell Marcus the truth hovered over my head like a dark cloud that refused to move. I practiced the words in my mouth, tasting the sediment of fear and longing that clung to them. I did not want to hurt him, not again. Not after all the days when he asked about my day and the look in my eyes when I said it was fine. I wanted to be fair to him, to us, to the small life we had built with quiet respect and loyalty. But I also could not ignore what breathed inside me when Daniel touched my elbow and murmured my name with a careful warmth that steadied my hands. In the end, healing and danger walked together to the edge of the dock and stood there, neither stepping back nor stepping forward. And I found that I did not need to rush to judgment. I could admit that I desired more than a fleeting moment of courage. I could admit that I feared losing the person I had become in the sunlit hours of a shared kitchen and a shared bed, and the way his breath warmed the skin at my neck. My heart, which had learned to measure every word, began to count differently, to count the days until I might tell the truth to Marcus, to Mara, to Daniel himself if needed, with a voice that did not break. And then the night grew quiet again, and we stood on the balcony and watched the lake breathe under the weight of the moon. He took my hand, and it did not tremble as it would have a season ago, and I felt a calm, almost maternal kind of certainty. The second chance I had hoped for did not come as a flash of fireworks. It came as a slow, careful turning toward a future in which the heart was allowed to want what it wanted, within the bounds of truth. I still love Marcus, and I still care for Mara, and I still see in Daniel a future that is not a trespass, but a long, soft invitation to rebuild a life around honesty and consent. If it means I will walk a different road from the one I planned, I will walk it with my eyes wide open, listening to the quiet counsel of my own heart. I did not leave him waiting for an answer that night. But I did tell him I wanted time to choose wisely, time to tell Marcus with care, time to map a future where forgiveness has room to breathe and where desire can be honest without breaking the fragile trust that binds a life together. The air grew cooler as dawn stretched its pale fingers across the lake, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose settle in my chest, like a soft varnish brushing over old wood, preserving what remains good while allowing room for something new to dry. The hashtags keep circling in my thoughts like a chorus. Emotional storytelling, forbidden love, second chances, mature romance, infidelity in marriage, love after loss, grief and healing, Tenet love story, romantic narration, YouTube romance, healing through love, slow burn romance, older woman, younger man, heartfelt story, true feelings, emotional connection, faceless love, Olivia and Marcus, narrative romance, love found me. If you crave more raw, emotional confessions, please like, share, and subscribe. Your next chapter awaits.